Season 2. Hey, we made it to season 2. So we are the podcast where we talk about all kinds of topics that we believe will create a better future for sales. Today's topic is the all-rounder in sales. The reason we want to discuss this topic is 2023 for many is the year to learn from. A character building year, I think, as I've heard you call it, Jordan. We topped 200,000 redundancies, largely in sales and marketing roles. Buyers stopped speaking to sellers for the most part, and sales motions did not adapt quickly enough. Despite the lip service most organizations were paying to being buyer-centric. MQL conversion rates dropped to an all-time low of 0.1%, according to Chris Walker's research, which I'm not surprised of. And companies are getting the sales go-to-market all wrong. But that's for another podcast. We are seeing that today, companies cannot afford the luxury of top BDR talent, top sales talent, top account management talent. So what are they doing? Feel free to share your thoughts.
Well, sorry, I thought we were going to do a round of intros before we dive in.
Okay, let's do that. That's a good point. I forgot myself. I got carried away with the start of season 2.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jordan Abbott, also known as the Sales Poet, because of some of the content that I share. Feel free to check it out. And I'm also a business development manager at the ISP. It's a little bit of a misleading title because the role is more of an account management role with sort of responsibilities to generate new business, and all-rounder as we're talking about today. Jensen.
Cool.
I'm Jensen Abbott, BDR at content.ai, and we are also joined by Fish, as you may see.
Hello, Fish. Good morning. For those listening on audio in the future, Fish is Jensen's cat, one of Jensen's cats.
Exactly.
So let's set the scene a little bit here, because we're talking from direct experience. We're talking about this topic from direct experience, not just the shift that we see and feel in the marketplace given market trends. So you both, if I talk about you first, Jensen, if we come to you first, you've been at an organization for what, 7 months as a BDR, and you're now moving towards an all-round role where you're being given some responsibility for selling. Now, I've been in B2B sales for 23 years, and that was a journey that would take a minimum of 2 years for the 1% of people, of BDRs, that really had the tenacity and the capability of moving into sales with a lot of coaching. So, I'd love to say you're amazing at your job, which I know you are, but you've managed to achieve that within just 7 months. Now, is that market trends, or is that your ability?
I would say it's a bit of both. In all honesty, I'd say definitely I think the market's kind of heading that way of actually, like you explained in the intro, maybe organizations don't have the budget to hire this top BDR talent or sales talent, right? So maybe it's actually finding a route of those that are performing to actually bring them up the funnel. And then also I could say that I've been trained very well in social selling, and I give credit to the guys who trained me. And it's keeping the consistency of that training. My pleasure, but it's keeping the consistency of that, right? And it's keeping the wheel turning. And one thing that I've learned is there's always things that can be done, right? Always things that can be done. So it's just keeping, like I said earlier, keep being consistent with the activities that I was trained to do.
Yeah, and I think we can't move away from that. I mean, we can't ignore that. Sorry, you have done a great job. You have followed a methodology. You've been very disciplined with it, despite the organization that you're working for still operating a more traditional go-to-market approach, let's say, without giving anything away. But still, I can't help but think the market conditions have helped to give you that opportunity. not saying you've been lucky. I'm just saying there does seem to be a shift, and companies can no longer afford the top talent in all three disciplines.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of being forced to say, well, if we can't afford the top talent in all three disciplines, and our MQL to SQL, if whoever is still following that approach, from MQL to SQL, the numbers quite simply don't stack up, meaning we cannot afford to spend money here and here. Then companies are being forced to consider, well, let's get the best talent that we can that will cover not one, but two, maybe three of those disciplines.
Yeah.
What's Jordan? So last year, and for our listeners, heard your story. You told your story as it was happening live. You were made redundant at the end of November last year. What's your experience of the shift that we're seeing in the market, and how you managed to get a role in sales that's more of an all-rounder role after just 7 months at your previous company? And congratulations, by the way. You started 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think 2023, particularly in this tech space, I don't think any organization came anywhere near their number that they laid out at the start of the year. And, we hear about close rates dropping, by up to 42%, I think, according to the Winning by Design research. But additionally, opportunity generation rates are just not where they need to be in order to hit that inflated quota.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's probably the biggest problem right there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Businesses aren't able to generate enough quality conversations, to be truly buyer-centric. So as you mentioned, and it's a slight tangent here, businesses love to say that they're buyer-centric, but if you've only got a handful of new conversations, can you really afford to be truly buyer-centric and say, do you know what, we're not actually a fit for 70% of these conversations? You're going to be trying to push all of them through. So we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot consistently. And I think we are reaching that inception point, sorry. And yeah, so I was made redundant, and I thought that, really, who's gonna take a risk on me for that next role? During my time at Vidyard, I was having the conversations, preparing myself for that next role. But then it felt like I was back at square one, because it is a big risk. And, we know that our buyers are mitigating risks as much as possible, but also sales orgs are doing exactly that, trying to ensure that they can weather the storm. So I looked for BDR roles, but additionally, what I sort of stumbled upon was a number of sales all-rounder roles in which, you are managing a book of business. You are also generating new business to add those into your portfolio.
Yeah. Now, for our BDR listeners, I think you have both been on a journey that's relevant to our BDR listeners. Jordan, what's one or two things that you can say that you did? Because it's not just at the point that you're interviewing, right? There's things that you do way before. What are one or two things that you did or you were doing that you believe helped you secure that sales all-rounder role?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think salespeople are uniquely positioned for trying to find a new job, because one of the things that I did is I treated it as if I would with any sales cycle. So I created the content that would resonate with that employer that I wanted to work for. I tailored my content to speak to them and to ensure that it's going to position me in the best light. And then, ensuring at the end of calls, we've got a next step booked in. I know my actions. I get them done as soon as possible, to the best of my ability. And ensuring follow-up, asking for feedback, trying to get as much transparency as possible throughout that process, and being really sort of organized throughout that process. So that's one of the things that I did throughout my process that I think helped. And, you know, very early on, I defined a list of businesses that I wanted to work for, my target list. As you would if you were defining your territory, or, you know, if you were handed your territory, you're then going to do some account mapping. And I ensured that I connected with as many people, as many relevant people within those organizations as possible, so that I was as visible as possible to that organization.
And you were, you know, you got a job within 3 weeks. So this wasn't a long period of time. You acted quickly.
Yeah.
You know, doing those things you're talking about. But I guess equally, you'd spent quite a bit of time developing your own personal brand and defining what you wanted to be best known for. So people were aware of you. Your network was aware of you already, which I think is an important thing.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Jensen, your journey is a bit different. So you weren't made redundant. You've managed to create this opportunity with the organization that you were already with. Now, some might say that's harder to do than when you're switching jobs. Others may say different, because, you know, why would a company take the risk on you to give you the opportunity to work on deals when you haven't worked on them or closed deals before?
Yeah.
How did your opportunity come about, and why do you think it came about?
Very good question, and I would kind of add to the point of Jordan, and what Jordan was saying, and to kind of give you backstory of how it came around within the role, but also how I put myself in the position to actually land myself at Content.ai. I would say networking, internal networking within the organization that I want to work for. Networking with those people that fit the ICP, and actually quite a nice story of how I got the job. Actually, we were at an event and I walked around with my CV and cover letter and handed it to individuals that or companies I wanted to work for, and then that networking actually landed me the opportunity with Content.ai, where I then again took that opportunity to network with all the people that I was going to be interviewed by. Even go into the wider team. So I would connect with the VP of marketing, all those people that would actually I'd be working under. They can then start to see me, right? So when I'm actually competing for that role, I'm kind of, like Jordan was saying, following kind of that sales strategy that I use on prospects. I would put content out so I'm actually seen, and they start to see a lot more of me, and actually that I'm getting a lot more kind of view within the market and on LinkedIn. But then how I got the role, kind of or the more responsibility, I'd say networking again, right? It's inserting myself into those networking opportunities, so then I can
internally.
Internally, but then also networking, externally, right? So being then able to have those conversations and build on those conversations to then create opportunities, and
to demonstrate that you're good at your job, because you were creating a lot of outbound opportunities regularly.
Exactly. And then lastly, it falls into what I spoke about with also networking. It's building those relationships, but making sure you actually water those relationships as well. It's not building a relationship and thinking, right, I've got a relationship now, let's move on. It's no, I've built that relationship and I actually need to water that. I need to let that relationship grow stronger. Sorry.
I think from what I can see, you've always been going the extra mile. So it's not just about creating the opportunity, your approach, your methodology that you're following. It's demonstrating to sales leadership and sales reps internally that you can qualify the opportunity effectively. You can warm it up to a point where they're ready to speak to a sales rep or a sales director, and not just throw the opportunity over the fence and say, hey, can you pay me on my SQA or SQL or whatever it's called? And I think that is really important when we think about how the role of the BDR is changing. And I think that's a great kind of topic to finish on today, because that should be a topic for us in the future in 2024. How is the role of the BDR changing, and what should the role of the BDR look like in 2024? Any final closing comments from you boys?
No, looking forward to the rest of season 2.
Cool.
Exactly that.
Thank you both for your time. I'm loving following your journey as your dad, obviously. Thanks for sharing your story with our audience. Thank you for the audience for listening. This was Walking Digital Corridors, a better future for sales. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care all.